frontier pushes back.
What the hell is this?
Hey everyone, happy Monday and welcome to another edition of Johnny Vlogs. I hope many of you have enjoyed one of the biggest science fiction, or as some people might call it, science fiction fantasy sequels of all time, Star Wars Episode 7 this past weekend. This is being recorded before that, so I haven't seen it yet, but I'm sure that you guys are abuzz. I have seen some early reviews of it that don't include spoilers. Thank you so much, Screen Junkies. You guys do great work. You should really check out Screen Junkies if you want to see some great content about films. But I want to talk about another science fiction sequel coming up, and all my junk in the background might give you a little tip. Star Trek Beyond. The trailer, at least the first teaser trailer, has been released. Now we're getting our first peek into what Paramount has in store for the crew of the USS Enterprise. And judging from that trailer, we can see they're jumping the shark right off the bat.
We got no ship. No crew. How are we gonna get out of this one?
In Star Trek terms, that means blowing up the Enterprise, which is kind of strange. Didn't they blow up the Enterprise in Into Darkness already? Well, no, that's right. It didn't blow up. It almost crash landed, but they saved it at the last moment. But judging from the footage in this trailer, the Enterprise is getting completely obliterated. Some might suggest the franchise feels like it's gotten completely obliterated. Okay, look. Obviously, I'm a fan of Star Trek, but I'm not a super fan. As a kid, I grew up with Star Trek: The Next Generation. I did watch a little bit of the original series on reruns growing up, but I don't think I've even to this day have seen every episode. I've read maybe one or two books based on Star Trek: The Next Generation, which I think still keeps me in the safe zone, not being a total super geek. I don't even think I've seen every episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation. I didn't fall into any of the shows that came after it. I tried to watch Deep Space Nine, again just recently, and after really gutting it through the pilot, which even included Captain Picard, one of my all-time favorite captains back there, it left me not wanting to come back. I still have not seen basically any of Deep Space Nine. I have recently been watching Voyager. I've started watching that on Netflix, and it's okay. I've also recently started watching Enterprise, which has given us probably one of the worst Star Trek opening theme songs. I literally fast forward every single episode.
No, they're not gonna change my mind, 'cause I've got faith of the heart. I'm going where my heart will take me.
That theme song is so bad. If they ever bring Family Ties back to Netflix, I vote that they use that theme song. I have no idea how it showed up on a Star Trek show. It does not fit at all. But I think that's going to tie into my feelings about Star Trek 3 a bit. I don't know if you're aware of it, but there's been a bit of turmoil around, well, it really started at the end of when Star Trek Into Darkness came out in the theaters. There was a Star Trek convention where you could vote on your favorite and least favorite Star Trek movie. And Into Darkness basically came in dead last. I think even Galaxy Quest, which isn't really a Star Trek movie, ranked higher than Star Trek Into Darkness. Around this time on Twitter, I decided that I wanted to reach out to one of the writers, Roberto Orsi, who was on Twitter at the time and would engage fans, but he had kind of a reputation for being a jerk and flaring people. But I just wanted to engage him in a conversation about Into Darkness and what was going wrong with the Star Trek franchise. And ultimately, from my perspective, they had focused way too much on war. And it's weird because in one way, it was very much like a Star Trek episode in terms that you would take modern day or current events or crises, I guess is the word, and write a script based off of that. But usually it would be kind of cleverly done, and if you didn't understand the basis of it, you would still at least enjoy the fiction of where that script took you. For Star Trek Into Darkness, it was so thin It was just obviously a retelling of what has been going on, particularly with U.S. and Middle East relations, false flag events that people have been drumming about on the internet forever and ever. Speaking of which, Roberto Orsi is a bit of a conspiracy theorist if you look into his Twitter feed. I don't think there's anything wrong with that necessarily, but I think you should be aware of how that affects the fiction that you put out. And he just had this huge blind spot to all that. You know, he really thought that Star Trek Into Darkness, at least as far as our conversation, was anti-war, that it was really a message about peace, that Kirk the whole time was trying to create peace by punching and kicking people and even kicking parts of the Enterprise when they weren't working right. I didn't buy it. I even made a whole video series, which I think I have a playlist for, so I'll put that in the description box below so you can check it out for yourself. It's a deep dive into that film. It's not for everyone, but if you enjoy Star Trek and if you want to see what I think went wrong with Into Darkness, it's extremely detailed. So now we're watching the trailer for Star Trek Beyond, and what are we introduced to? Jokes. There are 3 jokes in the trailer. That's pretty much what the trailer is just a series of setting up these jokes outside of the Enterprise being blown up, and we get the feeling that the crew, everyone has been killed, and apparently only the core crew is left, and they're stuck on some planet. We also get extremely old music from the Beastie Boys that I think is probably the hippest, most current thing that they could think of for this production. It hits me really weird when music like that shows up. Don't get me wrong, I love the song Sabotage, but seriously, how old is that song now? And that's kind of the most current hip thing. I mean, Paramount supposedly is trying to hip up this franchise, and if you look at what they've done since they've rebooted Star Trek, it's definitely what they're trying to do. They're trying to take what was seen as this niche, nerdy audience of people like me that is only this many people, and they're trying to take the franchise and open it up to more casual fans. And how do you do that? You do it in a couple ways. You add all kinds of dopey theater humor.
Well, at least I won't die alone. Well, that's just typical.
You know the jokes I'm talking about. They're when you're sitting in the theater and it's almost like it breaks the fourth wall. All of a sudden, the movie is winking at itself or asking you to wink at it, make fun of it with them. And some people in the audience laugh. It usually gets a pretty good laugh if you're in a large audience, but some people in the audience roll their eyes. I'm definitely more of an eye roller in those kind of moments. They're just very cheap laughs that remove you from the core story. And essentially that's what this trailer looks like so far, a collection of cheap laughs, wannabe hip music choices, and even the outfits they're wearing and the set design all looks very extreme, and it's pushing more towards like a Blade Runner type universe or feeling for me. Definitely not the clean lines, clean patterns, not even close to what was happening in either the original series or Next Generation. So, do I hold a lot of hope for Star Trek Beyond? Nope. Do I think it will do well and be popular? I think it will do okay, kind of like Into Darkness. I think Into Darkness came in around 400 million, which sounds like a great number, but it depends on these movies how much money you spend to make them. If you spend 200 million in making and marketing it, you have to keep in mind that the theaters also take about half of those proceeds for themselves in terms of ticket sales. So it's hard to know how much of a true success Star Trek Into Darkness was. And if you read some articles about it, it's not hard to find information that Paramount was not real happy with Star Trek Into Darkness. They think it was too Star Trek-y, which means they're really not paying attention to the fan base. Like I mentioned, there's a poll you can literally look at and see how that film was liked. And for what I would consider more serious casual fans like myself, that film did not feel like a Star Trek film. Into Darkness was, quite honestly, for a fan, even just of good films, it was kind of a confused, cobbled mess. and just not good storytelling. Definitely didn't have a lot of characters, like real human elements that we look for in movies like this. It's weird because I don't know what Paramount expects out of the Star Trek franchise. If you look at it historically, it's never been a super popular film franchise. I mean, they definitely had a few movies that did well, but the formula for those were always a good vein of science fiction storytelling. I mean, if you look at, for example, Star Wars or Star Trek Part 4, that is pretty much a straightforward story about conserving our natural resources on the Earth. You've got some great character interplay with Spock trying to relearn who he is and come back into that. Of course, the time travel adds a layer of interesting spin between characters from the future trying to mingle with characters from the past. It just fires in terms of sci-fi storytelling on many, many levels. This new Star Trek franchise, particularly Into Darkness, didn't really have that many of those complex levels going. I really hope they prove me wrong. Let me just tell you guys, I seriously do. I would love for that movie to come out and just blow away our expectations, show us something different, but take us back to that familiar place of Star Trek. It's supposed to be about exploration, about discovery, but on top of all that, it's supposed to be about great science fiction stories. And I don't think it's been that, honestly, for quite a while. Before I let you guys go, I just want to bring up this one other point. Now that I'm watching some of the older series, I can see the same thing happening. The Next Generation, every episode felt like its own contained little essay on some particular aspect of humanity or where we're going, or the Borg being technology overtaking other organisms. These are themes that are common in sci-fi stories, but when they're retold in that way, they work really well. As you watch, Deep Space Nine, I don't know what the hell Deep Space Nine was. I can't get into it. I'm missing the boat. It just doesn't feel anything like a Star Trek show to me. As you get to Voyager, you see that the humanity of the characters falls almost completely away. At least I'm only in the first season so far, but the characters, I don't know anything about Janeway, except she seems to be a Xerox copy of Kirk, but in a female body form. Outside of that, you don't really learn anything about the people in those episodes, and the science fiction stories they're telling are largely just, hey, look at this new dumb alien that's trying to steal something, or hey, look at this new alien species that's at war with this other one. It's falling into kind of a rote pattern. And if you go to Enterprise, which is probably, if Paramount wanted to be the least Star Trek-y that it could, especially in terms of the visual style, Enterprise is very, very different from the other Star Trek shows. Has a captain that is definitely not as ballsy as Kirk, not as smart as Picard, and not as paper thin as Janeway. It really tried to be something different. But even that, the episodes are falling into this regular mix of kind of retreading stories that have happened before it. So I think Paramount would probably do good to get on Netflix and watch those franchises for what they are and try to understand where they fell away from what is true good science fiction storytelling before, and make sure they're not going to repeat that again. Because so far, just judging from this trailer, and I know that's a hefty judgment, but this is what they've put out, it's looking like this is just a stupid summer sci-fi romp that we're all going to forget about a day after we see it. And that is definitely not what has kept Star Trek, the legacy, alive for decades and decades and decades, and kept people looking back at those old episodes and rewatching them over and over and over, expanding those universes, with new shows that are on the internet and all that great stuff. They're not going to do that about this new flavor of Star Trek.
Okay, let's never do that again.
One more thing. I know I said one more thing before, but now you're going to get two more things. Free bonus thing. The new TV series, supposedly a TV series, but not quite, is being developed by CBS. Is supposed to premiere, I believe, in January 2017, if I saw that right. And the new TV series will only premiere on CBS television. It won't run on CBS television. Only the pilot will be run there. And then after that, you will move over to the internet to see all the new content going forward on CBS's all access internet portal thing. So I'm a little excited for that version of Star Trek because possibly they're doing that so that they know they don't have to capture a large mainstream audience, that they can really give up the stories that the old school or super fans of Star Trek are looking for, I think. What do you think? Tell me in the comments below. Also, if you're interested, I did a review on some of those internet Star Trek shows, so I'll have a link to that right below the link to my Star Trek Into Darkness analysis, so you can check it out in the description box below. I hope you're having a great holiday week. Merry Christmas to anyone that celebrates it. Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa, whatever your holiday is. I hope you are enjoying it with your friends and family and having a great holiday season. Getting whatever presents you want, like good sequels for your favorite sci-fi franchises. Take care, everyone. I'll catch you next time on Johnny Vlogs.